Hey Mark, how does it feel now that everything is kind of all said and done? The work goes on all year and here we are.
You know what? It feels great. I got to be honest. Year four, I feel like I'm so much more prepared personally than year one, but this was such a hard year.
Mhm.
Trying to put this into context, and I said this to Fitzy and our group. Um, this birth year, when COVID struck in 19, they were 12. So they went 18 months without playing games. So you can stick handle, you can shoot pucks, you can skate, but missing 18 months worth of hockey can really affect the development. So it was a bit of a crazy draft, and I think that was evidenced by picks jumping all over the place. But I got to really give our group a lot of credit. We have great communication. We've got incredibly hardworking scouts. We got some sneaky picks. We really took some swings. Um, you know, if you're not happy the day of the draft after the draft, then you're going to be disappointed. So we're really happy.
All right, so you mentioned sneaky picks. Where do you kind of feel that you guys managed to do that?
Listen, Conrad Fondrick is a first round talent. I'm talking with someone that's involved with the national program. They talked about, anywhere if you were to pick him in the second round, you're going to get potentially the steal of the draft. He can shoot it. He sees the ice. But there's limited viewings because of injuries, and so he's a young man. Those types of things heal, and his ceiling as an all around player, but really a dynamic producer, um, was worth the risk. And so that we took a little flyer there, but it wasn't because of ability. It was more about viewings and injuries.
And then lastly, from me, it really looked like, you guys had, of course, taking the best player available based on your list, but there seemed to be a real focus there up front for this team and sort of restockpiling in the system when it comes to centers and forwards.
Again, you hit the nail on the head. It's ceiling first and foremost. We're looking for value, but as you get to the mid to later rounds, there's really there's not much that separates players. So whenever you can, center's a position that has value, and sure, we could use some centers in the system, but um, if when push came to shove, it was all about do we think this could be the best player available at this time? And so I think that's really what we're excited about is just looking at all of these players, we think there's a lot of upside.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you, Amanda. Our next question will go to Peter Baugh of The Athletic.
Hey, Mark, thanks for doing this.
Yeah, my
Um,
pleasure.
yeah, I just wanted to ask about you had obviously two top 65 picks. You talked about Conrad a bit, but what about Benjamin Kevin stood out and just how do you view the, I guess, collection of players that you were able to get in those first two rounds?
Yeah, goal scorers love to score goals. Like they just do. They don't care if it's the eighth goal in an 8-0 win or an overtime goal. And Ben really competes, gets on pucks. Um, really like how it was a tough season in Des Moines, and I'm sure he had other options. A player of his stature probably could have asked for a trade, and he wanted to be there and push through, which shows leadership. But I think that bronze medal overtime goal is a little bit of an indicator of what this guy's about. Really earned his ice time in the U18 tournament, and then ended up getting the bronze medal winning goal. Really like him. Think that his best hockey's ahead of him. Excited he's going to Arizona State. We know he's going to get an opportunity to be an offensive player right off the get-go. No, we're just really thrilled. We didn't think he'd be there, and he was. Mason Moe is uh, you don't get to play with a player like Riker Lee unless you're a good player yourself. And he's a type of guy that probably took a little bit of the defensive load off of him. But I wouldn't look past his offensive ability as well. Liked his net front play on the power play. He's a 200-foot player. There are certain things, non-negotiables, as Fitzy talks about with Devils, and he's a competitor. We like his track, going to college, going to Minnesota. And he'll be challenged there because they're going to have a good roster. But I think the long game is going to suit us with Mason Mo.
Thank you, Peter. Our next question will go to Christy Flannery, the Hockey Writers.
Hi, thank you so much for doing this.
My pleasure.
You kind of touched on it, but what are some of the traits that all your picks have collectively that fit with the identity of the New Jersey Devils?
Well, I mean, you need hockey sense and you need to compete. At the end of the day, this is a competition. And so a desire to win, a hatred to lose. But there needs to be a skill set and then also the ability to play fast. When you think of the Devils, you think of Jack Hughes, you think of Jesper Bratt and Nico Hischier and Luke Hughes. These guys play fast. And so you need to be able to play fast. There needs to be a skill set, but you can have that if you're not willing to compete or you hate to lose. You're gonna have a tough time making hay in our locker room.
Thank you, Christy. Our next question will go to Matt Blintner of Sportsology.
That's a dollar. That's $1 fine, Matt, for not taking mute off.
Sorry,
That's
thanks,
okay.
Mark. So you were talking about earlier about the value, how things don't really separate much for the players in the middle rounds. But early in the rounds, I mean, the Devils didn't have a first round pick this year. And then, you talked about taking a flyer out in the second round. Can you talk a little bit about how you do separate the value in the early rounds where there is that separation?
Well, again, if you look at who plays coming out of the draft, more often than the highest percentage is first round guys. And that's because they're ahead of their peers at that age, and that's really where the difference is defined. And I guess I wouldn't say taking a flyer, although I said it, as much as it is taking a big swing. Taking Conrad Fondrick and Keevan and Mo, those aren't flyers as much as those are big swings. These are guys that we think have a high ceiling. It's just room to grow, right? Very few of these guys are prepared to play at the NHL next year. And so if that's the case, then do they have room to grow? Are they willing to put in the work and can they bridge that gap? And the answer with I think all of these guys, but those three guys in particular, is we think they do. We think they have space and we think they have a willingness and we think that they'll be in situations where they can.
Thank you for that. And as you mentioned with the three guys, but specifically Mason Mo, and you touched on it just a couple moments ago. When we spoke to him, he talked about his advanced 200-foot game and how he really focused on that. What did you and your team see out of him as he progressed and became more of that full, complete player?
Yeah, no, I mean, I do think that he probably added more of an offensive component later in the season. I think probably the reason he was able to play with Riker is because he could take a little bit of that defensive responsibility. I mean, that at the end of the day is the center position, and we think he's a natural center. You're the bridge between the defensemen and the wingers. Oftentimes in the offensive zone, if you're not F1, you're getting above and you're making sure we have good posture. That takes intellect. That also takes sacrifice because most goal scorers have a little cheat in their game too, and that's okay. To be a center, you've got to be responsible at both ends, and we see that selflessness in his game.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Matthew. Our next question will go to Ashley Sarge, Sirius XM Radio.
Mark, how would you compare this draft to the other drafts, being in person on the floor compared to being in a bunker back home?
Well, first of all, our locker room is pretty sweet. So it's comfy, cozy, and we've got great technology. There are benefits and there are drawbacks.
All right, let me hear the benefits. I want to hear both. I really do.
Yeah, there are benefits and there are drawbacks. The benefits obviously are the conversations you can have internally with your group, that you're not worried about being overheard by other teams that are surrounding you. I'll be interested to see if there is as many draft day deals as there has been in the past, whether it's the same, whether it's more, whether it's less. I think when you're bumping people physically, running into an agent, running into another general manager, there tends to be more casual conversation, and I think those sparks can ignite. And then the other part is, you want this to be an event for the players too. I'll add another one for the fans, right? For the fans. So we'll see. It was the first time that we've done this since COVID. Um, we like how our draft ended up, so I'll be a little Machiavellian and say that the ends justify the means. As long as it worked for us, it worked.
Did it work for you guys?
We
Did you
think so. We think so. We like our draft, so we probably won't know for 5 years, but we're pretty excited right now.
one more question. You said about the COVID influence on these draft kits. Could you elaborate on that for me, please?
Yeah, I mean, hockey is a really fast-paced, intuitive game, and there's a reason why a lot of players require more time in development, whether it's in the minors, juniors, or college, and it's just to get those game situation experiences. Well, these guys, a lot of them are 12 to 18 months behind on that because they weren't playing. They could skate, they could shoot pucks, they could stick handle, but there was a time where nobody was playing because we couldn't. And so, how much effect that's had on this group, I don't know, but I'm sure there are players that are going to pop because their development has been somewhat stunted by that lack of competition.
Thank you. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, my pleasure.